The future isn't given. It's built. Built by people who stand up, speak out, and take responsibility for their country. This is We the Future with Bryce Wheeler.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome back to We the Future. First off, hopefully you enjoyed that introduction. That is made by my good friend Ed Bishop. Shout out to Ed. Hopefully you liked it. I have it made just for you. If you don't like it, skip a few seconds into every episode. That way you don't have to listen to it. I kind of think it's cool, so we're going to leave it in there. 2026, it's going to be our year. Big things are happening today. It is December 31st, 2025, which means today is the last day that you can do anything in the calendar year of 2025. So hopefully you're making it a good one and you are going to celebrate the new year, ring it in tonight with family, friends, and the people that you love. I didn't do a show last week due to the Christmas holiday. I missed you probably far more than you missed me, but I hope you enjoyed that holiday. I hope you enjoyed celebrating the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ, who is the only reason why we are here and the main reason why we can do anything in life. So hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I did. Santa was too good to our home, too good to the boys. We had a great year, so shout out to Santa Claus. You know who you are. We've got a good show for you today. Now, I don't want to be Donald Trump fake news, but I'm always going to tell you that we've got a good show. So regardless if you think that it has or was or is going to be a good show, just take it from me. I'm a reliable source. You can trust me as much as you can the other news medias. But we got some big stuff coming. 2026, we've got some really cool plans and exciting things coming. If you haven't noticed already, the camera quality is a little bit better than former episodes that we've put out. That's because we're stepping up the game. We're making this high-tech, high-level, baby. We're getting ready to roll. So audio, fairly good. Camera quality, way better. We've got really good lighting, right? Donald Trump would say it's the best lighting he's ever seen, right? So hopefully you're enjoying these shows. We're going to have a big year coming up. We're going to be putting out 2 episodes a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're going back to that schedule. Apologies for giving you the runaround. Decided that that's the best thing that fits my schedule with family, work, and everything in between. So hopefully you're okay with just listening to me twice a week. If you're not, check us out. Go back, listen to some old episodes, look at our Instagram reels. Of course, and of always, follow, like, subscribe wherever you can find us. The last and final big announcement that I'll make before we get into today's show is this. I'm moving. You heard that right. I'm moving. We're going to pack up the family, pack up the little ones, and we're going to head northeast to Minnesota. I've decided that my calling in life, it's really weird. It's random. It kind of came to me, sporadically over the last week. I've decided I want to open up a daycare center in Minnesota. I don't know why. Just feel like we need to do that. It may or may not be in regard to what is going on in the news. I don't know if you saw it. If you didn't, buckle up. If you have, you, like me, know that is the quickest way to become a millionaire in the new year of 2026. With that all being said, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back. Let's go. Oh, did we just double up on 2 new things? I think we did. So, new intro video, kind of cool. I like it. Once again, hopefully you do. I look for your approval. I don't even know who I'm talking to right now, but you, the listener, I hope you approve. If you don't, leave a comment. Let me know why. We got a lot of stuff to go over today. First and foremost, we had like the umpteenth visit from Bibi Netanyahu last week. or I guess this week. I don't know. And it's always good for him to visit the White House, Mar-a-Lago. It's always good to just have him here, right? So he can not only meet with President Trump and all of the other high-ranking officials of our country, but he can also ask for money. That's kind of the cool thing about it. If you've ever seen Parks and Rec, you know kind of who I'm talking about. Don't remember her name, but it's the scene where she asks for more money. She's like, more money, please. She leaves her hand out, right? That's kind of how I feel right now. Whenever the White House reports that Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting, like it could be whenever, whether he's visiting, the White House, Mar-a-Lago, synonymous. Whenever he visits, I just automatically see in my head tax dollars going to Israel. And that's it's kind of how I feel about Zelensky whenever he comes over from Ukraine. That little dwarf guy comes in with, a sweater, not dressed, just like some khakis, a sweater vest, right? He's kind of like Jake from State Farm. Whenever he comes to the White House and visits Trump, I feel the same way. It's like, oh, cool. Like, let's throw a little drum roll action in the background and let's wait to see what that number is. And this time around, it's, it's not that much money. It's not that much at all. It's just going to be, I think it's like $8.6 billion for a couple of fighter jets, right? So nothing crazy, right? Nothing at all. Just a measly, let's see, I pulled it up. Yeah, $8.6 billion contract to build 25 new F-15s for the Israeli Air Force. It's not bad, right? Kind of fun, kind of cool. If you like fighter jets like I do, then you should be excited about this. They're not going to be for us, but they're for Israel. So, of course, thank you. Appreciate that money that we took from you for that. In other news, we've got a lot to discuss with what's going on in Minnesota. First off, let me just cap this with, oh my gosh, are you not extremely grateful that Tim Walz is not the vice president of our country? Like, J.D. Vance, maybe you like him, maybe you don't. It doesn't really matter to me. But thank goodness he's not the vice president, right? Timmy Walz. Because the fact that this is how bad he's running the state that he's the governor of, it should be no hard thing to realize that we dodged a massive bullet. And that's going without saying, right? You've got Kamala Harris, Camel Harris. I don't know how you pronounce her name. You've got her. And then you had Timmy Walz. We were going to be in a world of hurt with both of them. But thank goodness we didn't get either of them. Because at this point, it's just, let's just bury this even more with the number of billions, millions of dollars that we've got going on with fraud. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me break it down for you like this, okay? This news story broke from an independent news journalist, and his name is Nick Shirley. And if you don't know who Nick is, I would encourage you to go onto social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, follow, subscribe, like his stuff, because he's an independent news journalist. I think he's like 23 years old. He's from Utah, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Booyah, boy. We got another one. But he's an independent journalist who goes out and exposes like a bunch of different stuff. And he's been doing this for a little while. He's almost got like 1 million subscribers. I think he's well above that, but like he's got a huge following. And his video he released the couple days ago about what's going on right now with the daycare or the childcare fraud in Minnesota. And the video went viral, like insanely viral, to the point where like multiple millions of people have viewed it. And if you haven't viewed it already, I think it's like 45 minutes to an hour. You don't have to watch the whole thing. You can watch the first 20 minutes and get the gist of it. But he just goes around door to door to these Somalian owned childcare centers in Minnesota, and he just knocks the doors to ask the owners questions. And what he uncovers is that all of these daycare facilities are practically empty. Nobody's in there that's a child, right? You just have a couple of adults there, no children, and they're getting millions of dollars from the government to open up these childcare facilities. And it goes without saying, that's a lot of money to be throwing and to be wasting. But what I think is important to understand is why this is so eye-opening for a lot of Americans, right? Because this story isn't getting a lot of traction and like views because it's brand news, right? Like breaking, read all about it, extra. The United States federal government commits fraud. I don't think that's the reason why this is garnering or garnishing so much attention. I think the reason why it's blown up is Americans, especially this year, we're just kind of sick and tired of the BS that we have going on here. I think that goes without saying. But B, I think it's blown up because more Americans are just waking up to the idea that this is happening on an extremely high level. This isn't just what's going on in Minnesota, right? I live in Utah. I'm far removed from what Timmy Walsh decides to do with the state of Minneapolis. But the state of Minnesota. What I am more impressed with is the fact that so many Americans are just waking up to the idea that, yeah, our country commits a ton of fraud. And this could be in so many states, if not all of them. This could be on so many different levels that this is, in my opinion, I think this story is going to grow and be the straw that breaks the camel's back, for lack of better words. Because I think Americans are starting to realize they are done. They are officially done with seeing their tax dollars go towards these programs, go towards these, programs, go towards these individuals, go to these states, and see it completely get wasted with fraud, embezzlement, and a bunch of other BS that Americans don't vote for, right? So let's get into that. And I'm going to break down the numbers for you, kind of get into a little bit with you. So let's do that right now. So we're going to get into all of the numbers here in a second, but I want to paint a picture for all of you. So hopefully we can kind of come to an understanding as to why this is happening. First and foremost, we have seen a huge influx of Somalian refugees coming to our country. Right now it's reported, I just had the number up here, there's like 260,000 Somalis in the United States, and most of them are up in Minnesota. And so you probably don't see them unless you live there. But I want to break down as to why this is happening. So the government under the Obama and the Biden administration and other Democrat administrations, you hear it said a lot that there's two sides or two wings of the same bird, which is why they call it the right and the left, right? You got the right wing, you got the left wing, but at the end of the day, they're both the same bird. America has a history, the United States has a history of destabilizing countries and then welcoming in those citizens of that country to the United States. So for example, you have the Middle East. Throughout the entire Bush administration, when we were in the Middle East fighting those wars, we destabilized so many different countries over there and just blew them to bits. And then under Democratic administrations, they now open the borders, right? So you've got Republican administrations that start wars, battles, fights, that destabilize and completely just wipe out these countries. And then you have Democratic officials and administrations that then open the borders to allow these refugees to come into the United States. So they're both doing the same thing. They're both making this near impossible to walk outside and hear English in America, to hear English in your streets. You walk outside today and now you hear Spanish, of course, and then you hear 3 other dialects of a language that you don't know because there's refugees all around you. And of course, Trump is doing his best, some might say, to deport all of these illegal immigrants that we saw flood the entire country during the Biden administration. But what you've got going on right now is a direct cause and effect as to the games that we've been seeing play for a very, very long time here in America. So let's talk about this. We have 260 estimated 100,000 refugees from Somalia. And what's going on right now is they are getting just completely mooching off the government right now, just completely, through food programs, through government housing programs, through childcare, work, job programs. They're just completely living off of the government up in Minnesota. And before I get even deeper, let's talk about the fraud that we're going to be seeing. It's not by accident, in my opinion. This isn't done by just the Somalian people alone. I don't think, and this isn't just going to say it at this point because here we are, I don't think they're smart enough to be able to understand how to, commit fraud and defraud the United States government, unless the United States government at this point is just completely free and easy, right? Which it could be. I think this goes way deeper, and they're getting help from state officials, federal officials. There's just, it all reeks that it's not just the Somalian people defrauding the American taxpayer. But the country of Somalia, its society, its economy, it has failed dozens of times. And so when that happens, the people of Somalia, or a country that its economy collapses multiple times, they are what you might classify a low trust people, which, hey, granted, to be fair, when you have a low trust people and you welcome them into a high trust society like the United States, you're bound to open up a can of extreme problems unlike anyone has ever seen before, which is what we are finally seeing thanks to independent journalists like Nick Shirley. What I mean by that is this. I've never been in an orphanage. I've seen, a couple movies that portray an orphanage type scene. I've seen Matilda, Annie, so maybe I know what I'm talking about. But when you're in an orphanage, I imagine that if you're constantly looking for, love, someone to care for you, you're maybe hungry because you don't get snacks all the time. You just get kind of your set meals. When you're in that type of a situation, when there's low trust, you may be told that a meal is coming at 6:00, and you might get told, hey, today's the best day ever because we're now going to be serving steak for dinner tonight. But if you've gone without food so many times and you've been told or overpromised and then underdelivered on results or type of food so many times, you might start stealing things like a ketchup packet, maybe some relish. You might, take a dinner roll from, yesterday's dinner and shove it in your pocket. You might try to steal your neighbor's dinner roll because you don't want to be hungry if the food sucks tomorrow night. When that happens, that's the exact situation that I'm talking about right now. So when you adopt a child from an orphanage and that's the environment that they've been in, and then they come to your house, they might continue to do those types of things. They might go out to eat with you at a restaurant. They might grab a bunch of, Chick-fil-A packets and put them in their pocket and take them home because they still don't trust the environment that they're in. That's exactly what we're seeing right now with the Somalian people in Minnesota. They don't trust the government. They don't trust governments. They don't trust economies. They don't trust people around them. They just trust themselves, which is understandable. Your country has had a failed economy multiple times. You're coming from a fallen country. You probably are looking for, better opportunities here. You want to open up a childcare center. We're going to get to that. And so when you come here, you now start looking for ways to get handouts. You start looking for ways to make a quick buck, to be able to put yourself in a better situation off of your own trust, off of you trusting yourself and nobody else, which is why these people are not only committing fraud by opening up these childcare centers that don't have any children in them. You also have fraud being committed with food and, the food stamp program. You have fraud happening with job programs, housing programs. Overall, this happens because they are doing their best to survive. And the environment that they've now been welcomed into is a high trust environment. And they are a low trust people. So they don't trust anybody except for themselves, which means they're only going to be looking out for priority number one, me. And how are they going to look out for themselves? They're going to look for every angle, every opportunity to commit fraud and put money in their pocket so that they can survive another day. So let's get into what the numbers are and what I'm talking about. Right now, the total number, we don't know, but key findings as of today, obviously massive amounts of fraud, but it's related to pandemic aid. So aid that was given during the COVID-19 pandemic. And these are cases that involve hundreds of millions, potentially over billions of dollars in, like I said earlier, childcare, food programs, and all of these are leading to large-scale federal investigations and funds being frozen. So it was announced yesterday or today that any more funds requested are going to require a massive amount of proof and evidence, receipts, before the federal government ever approves them and gives them money, which that should be happening without question. Like, what are you talking about, bro? That's now just getting implemented. Like, that's a really good idea. When I've worked for companies where I might get my gas paid for because I have a company card, I have to turn in my receipt. It's not like they just trust me day one, and I'm a freaking employee of the program of the company I work for. That's besides the point. Right now, these are the total numbers. Findings include $250 million of food fraud cases through a program called Feeding Our Future, $9.5 million in Medicaid fraud charges, and it's suspected that for PPP loans and SNAP benefits, those total, or that total number could exceed over $1 billion. So tons of fraud, right? That's a shiz ton of money, right? Part of my French, shit ton. Try not to swear as much. There it is. That's a ton of money. And so Americans are waking up to this idea of, I'm struggling to feed my family. I'm struggling to pay bills. And yet this happens. We go back to the founding of America for a second. Take this journey with me, right? Good picture behind me. You go back to the founding of America, and the whole reason why America became a nation that was separate from any other nation, and why we decided to fight against Britain, was because they decided to tax us without representing us, right? You might remember from history class, or if you watch School of Rock or Schoolhouse Rock, right? I think that's what it is. No taxation without representation, right? That whole thing. That's why we decided, and why our founding fathers decided, that they were done with the British government. We were going to go our own way. We were going to fight them because they wanted to tax us. They wanted to not represent us. And we were done with it. We're just done with it. Right now, what we're seeing in America is exactly that. We are getting taxed with no representation. And you might argue, well, Bryce, we have senators, we have congressmen and women, we've got a president, we have representatives, we have representation. But you don't. You really don't. When this amount or this deep of fraud is being committed, and this is just one state, right? Multiply this times 50. Hypothetically speaking here, this is not news. Hypothetical though, you're talking about over $50 billion of fraud with maybe just a few programs in each state. You're talking about maybe even more than that, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And that's just at the state level. Look at it on the federal level. You have congressmen and women, you have senators that get in, their net worth is like a cool $150,000, maybe $500,000. And then when they get out or when they're their first few years in office, now their net worth is in the millions or multiples of tens of hundreds of millions. How does that happen? Right? You've got insider trading, of course, happening, but there's no way that those people aren't getting money from programs like this. And so why I bring all of this up is because not only is this a kind of a rude awakening for a lot of Americans who haven't been paying attention, but I think this is going to lead to a revolution. I think we are going to see Americans on a huge level decide this coming spring not to pay their taxes. You already have very influential people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. You have Theo Vaughn, others already calling out Andy Frisella. He's one that I saw yesterday, already saying we're not going to pay our taxes. Not because we just want to be criminals, but because when we're paying taxes and that's going towards fraud, that's going towards spending that we don't want, we hold the power. And when the Pentagon, for example, failed its audit for the last 8 years. Like, get that through your head. The Pentagon has failed an audit 8 years in a row. It hasn't passed since like 2017, 2018. When it fails an audit over all of its assets and all of its finances, nothing happens. And when I mean nothing happens, I mean nothing happens. This is what I decided to go. I went on ChatGPT and I decided to have this conversation with it. Okay. So I asked it, how much money has been lost by the Pentagon throughout its entire history of being around? It didn't give me a specific number, but it did let me know or reminded me that it's failed a department-wide financial audit since 2018. Okay. So let's continue to go. It begins to list out all of these different things that the Pentagon has done. So it's never passed a full audit. So the expected total of unaccounted funds are unknown. It's audits or in audits covering trillions in assets, right? Large fractions, often roughly half or more, could not be verified due to insufficient accounting, equating to trillions of dollars in assets not fully traceable on paper. Okay, so I decided to ask you this question. What are the punishments that have been given for the Pentagon not passing an audit? And in short answer, it says, there have been essentially no meaningful punishments for the Pentagon failing its audits, at least none comparable to what a private company or smaller federal agency would face. And it gives me the breakdown. There's no fines, there's no criminal charges, there's no budget clawbacks, there's no leadership removals mandated by law. In summary, it says, let's see here, bottom line, there's no punishments that have been given so far, and the actual outcome of all of this is really more money's been given to the Pentagon, more time, and more promises. Now, look, I get the Pentagon is probably the top, if not close to the top department within our government, and it's got a ton of different things that it does, right? For the defense, for, foreign and domestic. I get all of that. I'm not trying to be that guy who's just criticizing every department of the government. But when that happens, nothing in terms of a punishment gets handed down. But yet, here's what I asked it next. What happens if a United States citizen gets audited by the IRS and fails the audit? And here's what it says. If a United States citizen gets audited by the IRS and fails the audit, the consequences can be very real, very expensive, and sometimes criminal. Here's the breakdown. But I, of course, am just going to read you the summary. So here's the bottom line. If you fail an audit, you pay, you're penalized, you may lose assets, you may face jail time. If the Pentagon fails an audit, it issues a report, it promises reform, it gets more funding. So at the end of the day, and I even asked it, how is this fair? And it said, it's not fair. Most Americans don't think it's fair, and by normal standards, it isn't. When you've got that going on by the federal government, and that's just the Pentagon, and then you throw in a little bit of fraud that's happening in the state of, Minnesota, and then you throw in, a bunch of other states that have committed fraud or continue to commit fraud, Americans are sick of it, which is why this is going to lead to, in my opinion, a revolt. You're going to see people I genuinely hope, people by the millions say, I'm not paying taxes. I'm done with it, right? They're going to mark exempt on their W-2s. They're going to have nothing withheld from them. They're going to pay the programs that they have to pay, but they're going to take home every single dollar that they make. They're going to tell the IRS basically to screw you. I hope that's what we see, because something has to change, because it's kind of getting ridiculous. And I know it's not just me that feels that way. When you've got Theo Vaughn, when you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, when you have other people saying, you know what? Yeah, I think this is what we're going to see. I truly hope that is what we see. Because the IRS, the federal government, state governments as well, obviously that's pretty clear with Minnesota, they need to, as the old saying goes, check themselves before they wreck themselves. Because we're done. All of this happens, and yet the IRS, the federal government, still has the audacity to pound down your door and say, you haven't paid us your taxes yet. You missed something on your taxes before. You forgot to mention this income. You made a small clerical error. And so we're going to just completely audit the freak out of you, and we're going to make sure that we understand exactly what you own, exactly what your assets are. I heard something this week that if the federal government can come in and if they can seize your assets, take your property, freeze your bank accounts, if they can do all of that, did you really have property? Did you really own anything? Did you really have freedom? I don't know if I can answer that in a positive light, right? 2026, I'm genuinely trying to make these a little bit more positive, these videos, these episodes. But I don't have a positive answer to that, because that's the case. We aren't free. We aren't. When that's the situation that we live in, we're not free. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I encourage you to, at Bryce_Wheeler1. I tweeted this out yesterday. And I think it's important for us to understand. During America's founding era, there was a motto that was thrown around, and the motto is, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Now, we clearly saw that, which is why, during America's founding, that happened. But I think it matters the most right now, because It's our duty, it's our right, it's our responsibility to overthrow a tyrannical government. A government that's overstepping its bounds, a government that is no longer representing us, the people. We have all of the control. We really do. That's how the entire country was set up, that we, the people, would have control. And yet it's completely turned over the last 250 years. It's completely turned the opposite way, to where we no longer have the majority of the control. We, the people, are no longer in power. And so it's our responsibility, and I really, really hope that we see 2026 come screaming in like a banshee, because I hope most Americans are waking up to this idea that we have to do something. And if it's not evident with everything that we've just gone over, let it be evident, and let me just drive the point home even now. While we're all distracted with bowl season, with other things happening in the news, right now a bill is being pushed through the House that would provide billions of dollars to go towards future immigrants that are coming to this country, to help them get started, assimilated, and ready to rock. That is currently being pushed right now to be passed. They are voting on that right now. So while we're all up in arms about the current immigrants that are getting money, that are taking resources, jobs, committing fraud on massive levels, while we're all upset about that, our government, our quote unquote representatives, are passing bills, passing laws that is setting aside, that is collecting aid to be given to future immigrants to this country. People who aren't even here yet, but who will. They'll be here. That is happening right now. So if I haven't painted the picture clear enough for you, I hope in short that does. We are living in a time, we are living in a society where we are not represented anymore. It's just true. It's the fact of the matter. And so I would urge all of you who are listening to this, I know it's not many, to think really long and hard about what 2026 is going to mean for you, your families, your spouses. What is that going to look like? Because regardless if you're politically minded, if you're politically savvy, if you like to be involved in politics, you have to be aware. We no longer live in a time where you can just sit on the sidelines and idly watch as shit goes down. Pardon my French. That's not the day and age that we live in. You should have been born in the roaring 20s and you could just worry about world wars. And that's it. We live in a time where we have to be educated. You have to be aware. You have to be knowledgeable. And you have to do something about it. Because we're no longer just talking about politicians down at your local state capitol, down at your local city municipal offices, or politicians that are in Washington, D.C., who are far away, who are just writing bills and they affect you in some small way, shape, or form. We're talking about things that directly affect the way that you and your families are able to survive. That is the current American civilization, the current America that we find ourselves in. So as I come to a close, as I end this, I just would urge you to really think about how you're going to make 2026 a little bit better for you, the people around you, the people in your lives. And I hope it starts with standing up to tyranny, to standing up to the IRS and basically saying, kick rocks. Once you figure out who's committing fraud and you figure out your own situation, then you can come and knock on my door and ask me for the couple of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars that I quote unquote owe you. because we're tired of funding BS. We're tired of what's happening. We're underrepresented and we're just done. I hope that's what your 2026 comes into, because through all of this, we have seen that they will continue to do the same dumb games that they always do. If you point out fraud, they'll call you a racist. It's what Tim Walz did. If you point out what we're doing or all the aid that we're giving to Israel or question what the Israeli government is doing, you get called an anti-Semite. If you call out what's happening in the medical field, with vaccines, with anything like that, with healthcare, you get called an anti-vaxxer. If you catch on to what I'm saying, the game will continue to be played by global elitists. They will continue to call you fake, gay, racist, anti-this, anti-that, Semitic this, Semitic that. They will continue to call you those names because that's all they know what to do. Because usually that stuff works. Which is why we have an independent journalist break this story. Because real news media won't go near it because they're afraid of being labeled a racist. So I truly hope that your 2026 brings in all of that emotion, all of that power, and much, much more. Because we've got a lot to get done. We've got a lot to do. All right. The last thing I wanted to chat about today, before we end this episode, we all get to our, some of you might drink. I personally don't drink. So before you get to your sparkling apple cider, your alcoholic beverages, your stay up late, go to bed early, whatever camp you're in, before we get to all of that and end the year 2025 with a bang, I want to talk about one major last topic, and that's the Epstein files. And I know we've talked about this a lot, and I'll be quite frank. The reason why I'm talking about this right now is I had a conversation with somebody that I consider a friend of mine. And in that conversation, they expressed that at the end of the day, they don't really know what's going on with Epstein and with the Epstein files. They expressed that they're not really paying attention to it. They're not really kind of like aware of it or worried about it. And to that, I would say this, and this is kind of why it's inspired me to talk about it. If the Epstein files, the cover-up, the fact that our government's done nothing but lie to us countless times and continues to lie to us over and over and over again, if that doesn't bug the crap out of you, if that doesn't boil your blood and send you into orbit, I would sincerely question the type of individual you are. And I don't mean that to be rude. I don't mean that to be, confrontational. I do mean it to be frank and abrupt and up in your face. Because how a society treats its most vulnerable shows and directly reflects that society as a whole. And to turn this into anything but outrage and civil protest and flipping tables to the likes of our Savior Jesus Christ, this should be nothing short of that. The fact that our president, our government, for years can string this along can manipulate us into believing that they're actually going to release some sort of valuable evidence and proof, that they're going to show us documentation, that they're going to drain the swamp, that they're going to release the files. And then for months, you, me, the American citizens, we get treated like we're idiots. Complete and utter idiots. Because the cycle that we went through this last year with the Epstein files, going from Trump running on the campaign promise that he would release them when he gets into office. This was like a day one issue for him. He gets into office. Nothing happens. He says that we finally have the files. We're going over them. They're on Pam Bondi's desk. They're on the Department of Justice's table. We just have to wait for them to release them. We get dragged through the summer charade of influencers, MAGA influencers, getting invites to the White House, getting binders that ended up being nothing but a bunch of fake and gay white pages with black spaces on them. To then Donald Trump kind of upset at a reporter asking him in the White House about the Epstein files, to the point where he says, quote, "Are we still talking about this?" And then we get told that there are no files. The client list doesn't exist. Then we get told by rhino Republicans that if we released them, it would bring down our civilization. It would bring down the government. It would cause so much damage to it. To finally, Thomas Massie and other Republicans and elected officials grow pairs of balls, for lack of better term, and actually force a bill to be signed, pass it through the Senate, pass it through the House, finally get it to President Trump's desk and say, "Sign it, you POS." He signs it, and then for a month, they have a month. They take the entirety of the month. They work overtime. It's reported that it cost the Department of Justice and the FBI millions of dollars to pay these staffers overtime for them to be able to redact all of the information from these files. We finally get files released a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And we get told, and hopefully you paid attention to this, it was amongst the Christmas season, so if you didn't, that's okay. That's all the files we have. There you go. But then Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, between those 2 days in that time period, 1 million more documents get brought to the Department of Justice's awareness. And they finally say, okay, we've got a lot more that we have to release. Give us a little bit. We're going to release them. They have committed treason. Not only for just lying to the American public, but for not obeying a direct law that was passed to release everything in 30 days. They don't release it. They slowly start to find, right, air quotes, heavily air quoted, they slowly start to find new documents that they need to release. But why am I talking about this again? I will talk about this until I'm blue in the face and I'm dead. This is a hill that I have chosen to die on. And I would implore, encourage, and plead with you that it also is a hill that you will die on. Because we're talking about children. We're talking about vulnerable children. We're talking about a government that is infiltrated, ran, infested by pedophiles. So forgive me if you lose a little bit of credibility in my eyes, if your reply, if your language about the Epstein files is something along the lines of, I don't know a lot about it. I don't, it's there. It's in the background. I mean, we'll see what happens. If that's how you feel about the rape and the sexual abuse of thousands, tens of thousands, we don't know, children, forgive me if you fall a couple of notches in my books. This should be something that should absolutely infuriate all of us. And yet, as long as we have our alcohol, our Saturday football, our sports, our basketball, our professional sports, as long as we have our TVs and our bills get paid and we have food on the table that's remotely decent and tastes all right, as long as all that happens, we're good. This should piss you off royally. And to cap it all off, people need to wake up to the idea and the truth, I'm going to say truth, which is they are protecting these pedophiles because it goes and ties directly back to Mossad and Israel. And you can roll your eyes, you can turn off this episode, that's fine with me. There's a direct correlation between the two. The Epstein Island, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the abuse of children and the state of Israel, the government of Israel. There's a direct tie. And if you can't see it, I'm more than happy to spell it out for you. But I would just urge you to do a little bit of research on your own, because it's not even, we talk about levels of, research, right? You have to find out this to learn this and learn this to know that. And you have to keep going deeper and deeper into levels. You don't even have to go that deep to see the correlation between the two. You really don't. And it pisses me off when things like this come in the news. And I'm going to share with you 2 videos that I think are important for us to watch, because it directly shows the cavalier attitude about those that are in government, specifically speaking to Donald Trump, President Trump, in this first video, and those who are, quote unquote, the MAGA Republicans that help run our party. Excuse me, scratch that. Not my party anymore. Run the Republican Party. So here's the first video. This is President Trump, and these are his thoughts recently on the Epstein list.
Were you surprised by the number of photos of Bill Clinton in the Epstein files? And can you commit to their full release by the end of the year? Some of the victims were protesting that too many of them were redacted.
I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for us. And Bill Clinton was a friend of his.
So just in case you needed me to summarize it, President Trump respects Bill Clinton, but hates Thomas Massie. Got it. We can't move forward in this country without justice. We can't. We are too far past the point of a slap on the wrist, continue moving forward. We're too far past it. We're not voting our way out of this mess. This is part of my 2026 hills to die on and my 2026 reasons to completely overthrow and take back our country. And if they're not on your list, I would hope that they are after this episode. The second video I wanted to show is of guys that, I mean, in my opinion, are lowlifes. They don't deserve any recognition whatsoever, but yet, you know, we gotta show them. These are guys that, in my opinion, are the worst people.
Our time on Epstein and other stuff that are going on here that some people want us to focus on. I've about had it with all that stuff. We better focus on who we are, what we're doing, where we want to take the country.
On a list of American priorities, the Epstein-Maxwell case comes in pretty close to zero, just on a list of priorities.
For me, this whole Epstein mess is probably ranks somewhere between the 40th and 50th most important issue, if that I care about.
Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Josh Hammer. I don't like any of them. If you do, that's fine. But I would just ask this question. Why are we listening to people like that who have such little regard for children's innocence? Why are we listening to them about what we should care about here in the political world as American citizens? I think it's extremely telling that they all three have one thing in common. They're all Jewish. And I mean, I've studied a little bit about the religion, and it's quite clear that there's very little regard for children's innocence or vulnerability within that religion. I just wonder why that's who we get our advice from. It's time for a change. It really is. It's time for us to turn a new page as we enter into a new year. As we come into the year of celebrating 250 years of America's birth and life, in my opinion, we're coming to the end. Because all of these signs, all of these things that are no longer important to the masses should be the things that we revolt and go nuts over. And if all of this feels heavy, right? If all of this is a lot, depends on the way you look at it, to take in, I would say good. I really would. And the reason why I say that's good is because this is heavy and this is a lot of knowledge and wisdom that you have to put into researching. And if it makes you feel heavy, if these topics make you feel saddened, there's a reason why. And it's a good reason. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 18. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. We're entering a world and a time of our American civilization that you have to be aware. I talked about it earlier. I'm going to restate it for one last time before we wrap this up. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to be aware. There's no longer the time and opportunity you have as an American citizen to sit on the sides and to do nothing. You can't sit on the sideline. If you want to be a part of this team, and if you want this team to succeed and to ultimately win, and to conquer evil and to defeat it and to root it out from everywhere that it hides, you can no longer sit passively by watching everybody else do the dirty work. I'm not asking for you to run for office. I'm not asking for you to start a podcast, to start an Instagram page, to speak out against the tyrants. I'm just asking you to be aware, to use your brain and be a little bit more coherent and conscious in the world that we live in. I'm asking for you to stand up for what you believe is right. And if you're like me, what you're seeing happen right now in our country, you know it's not right. 95, 96, 99% of what's happening right now, you should not stand for. But yet you do. Ask yourself as we go into a new year why that's the case. Why do you not care? Why does this not intrigue you? And I would hope and I would pray, and it's my honest and earnest prayer, that Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ will awake and stir your soul to realize that what is happening right now, you should not stand for, and you should not sit by and watch happen. It's time to take a stand. It's time to find your hills that you'll die on. And it's time to stand up to our government and to the people who, quote unquote, lead us. We, the people, have the power. We, the people, have the right, have the ability, and have the duty to overthrow a government when it no longer serves us as a people. Heavy stuff. Take a deep breath, take it in. In closing, I would just say this. Thank you. 2025, what a year. Had a lot of highs and it had a lot of lows. Is the year we started this whole journey, this whole podcast, this show, this page, all of it. 2025 is the year of the birth of We the Future. I appreciate you being along the ride for 2025, and I can promise you and tell you this, 2026 is going to be even better. Not only am I going to dedicate more time, energy, and effort into making these episodes way better, but also posting daily content that's at least uplifting, but also enlightening for those who follow the Instagram page. My goal is to grow a voice. My goal is to grow this into something that can stand for truth, stand for righteousness, stand for righteous indignation. That's my hope. And you're along for the ride in 2025, and I welcome you into a brand new year in 2026. We'll have a new episode come out on Friday. It'll be the second day of the new year, so look forward for that. We're going to have a lot of new exciting announcements that I can't wait to talk about on that episode. In short, thanks for being here. I'm excited for the journey and for the future. And remember, we are the future, and we build it together. I'm Bryce Wheeler signing off for a great 2025. I'll see you and I'll talk to you next year, as we always used to say as kids. But in all seriousness, have a great rest of 2025. Enjoy the night, celebrate hard, and we will catch you here soon. See you later.